Hi, you are pressing too hard. Now I know that might be a little bit of a clickbaity, controversial title, but in my experience, many of the people that I teach, either one-to-one or in workshops, and people that I encounter at festivals, the one thing I see more than anything else is people squeezing their left hand far, far too hard and making their life really, really difficult. It's a really bad idea to put too much pressure on with your left hand. Things will happen. One is if you are squeezing all the time, you will hurt yourself. You'll end up with a sore thumb or wrist or elbow or neck and shoulder. If you also press on too hard, then you're going to have to let go of all that pressure to move to another chord and then put it all back on again, which means your chord changes tend to be a little bit more difficult and sound a bit more clunky and less smooth. And finally, this might happen. Here's a G chord. Now I press really hard. I've squeezed my instrument out of tune. So why do we do it? Well, it's a combination of things. One is when you first start playing, unless somebody shows you that you don't need to put a lot of pressure on, then you might think you have to, especially if you've come from an instrument that might have metal strings at very high tension and lots of them, like the 8 metal strings on a mandolin or the 6 metal strings on a guitar, because they do take more force, more pressure. The other thing is we sometimes see a chord, and because we think it's a hard chord, either because of our experience or just because we've been told it's a hard chord to play, we feel we have to put more force in to make that chord work. None of this is the case. You never have to use a great deal of force or even a moderate amount of force on a ukulele. Of course, I do have to pop up at this point and say if your ukulele is set up properly and you have a nice low action. If you've got one that's got a huge action, then yes, you are going to have to put a lot of pressure on. But the solution there is not to carry on playing with lots of pressure, it's to get your ukulele set up. So what do we do about it? Well, a great exercise is to start putting your fingers down in the shape of the chord without pressing the strings down onto the frets. What do I mean by that? Well, here is a G chord. It looks like I'm playing a G chord and my fingers are on the strings in the right place, but I've not pressed them down onto the frets to make the sound. That forces me to get my fingers in the right place without any of this, right, I've got that finger down, I'm going to wedge my other fingers against that finger and try and get that one down. We can't do that. We have to place them in the right place with no tension and no force, just getting them into a shape. Doing that is a really good exercise because it trains your fingers to go to the right positions before you have a chance to force them into the right position. If you can only get a finger to go to where it needs to go by first of all putting the other finger down and wedging it against that one, that's really not going to help you do smooth chord changes. So this is a great exercise. Play through the chords in a song, but don't put any pressure on the strings. Just mark it with your left hand, just putting the fingers in the right position. Then, when you do come to put the pressure on, no pressure on that G7 chord there, just put enough on that you can hear the chord. The minute that chord rings, don't put any more pressure on. That's as much pressure as you ever need to put on to play that chord. It's not much, is it? In fact, I can take my thumb off the back of the neck and still play it pretty well. It's very little pressure. Another thing we do is we put a lot of pressure on because we're forcing our hands into awkward positions. I often see this D7 chord, this bar of the 2nd fret, with our 2nd finger on the 1st string 3rd fret, played with this side of the finger, the inside edge of the finger. So the elbow comes out, and we're playing on the side of the finger that's next to the other finger, like that. So my fingernail sort of is pointing towards the body of the uke. And then I've somehow got to get that finger, I can't get it there. I can't get my 2nd finger the right side of the fingerboard now. So I'd have to do it the other way. I'd have to put that finger down and then do this. I've no idea why I see a D7 played like that so much. Just lay your finger across the fret and put the other finger down next to it. If you are going to rotate your hand, don't rotate it this way, rotate it a little bit the other way, just to give these fingers a little bit of wiggle room. Again, put that chord shape down, take it off. Do it in a relaxed way so that you're not going like that to try and get that shape. Bar chords are often the point where people start to squeeze really, really hard. And usually it's because they're getting a dead string, a rattle, something like that. Most of the time, that is caused by a finger accidentally touching the string next to it. So that dead string might not be because you're not pressing down hard enough. It might be because you say your second finger that's supposed to be holding down the third string is also just touching that. So be really careful of your placement to make sure that you're only touching the strings you want to touch. Another thing I see on bar chords quite often is bar with the first finger, then the second finger on top of the first finger to press it down with two fingers, and then of course you've only got two fingers left, so you end up starting to play chords like that, and then if you need to do it for a B flat you've got to bring your little finger in. Really, the amount of pressure I'm putting on with two fingers there is hugely more than I need to. And I've lost a finger. I now haven't got a finger free to play the chord shapes I want to play. I sometimes see people as well bar with just the tip of their finger and hook it round and then put their thumb around on top of the nail of that one to squeeze it even tighter. That sort of bar can work if you've got very big hands, but for most of us we need to be hinging from the big knuckle and laying that finger straight and getting that neck out of there. So my challenge to you is to see how little pressure you need to put on to play. You shouldn't be hurting yourself playing the ukulele. It's a very small, gentle, delicate instrument that you can play with a very gentle touch, providing you get your fingers in the right place to start with. And of course, that your ukulele is set up correctly, because you're never going to be able to play with a light touch if your action is really high. The solution to that is not to press harder, it's to get your ukulele set up. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.